we were talking about something you said about Pompidou, and this story about a young woman, well, a teacher, who was having an affair with one of her students, a 17-year-old boy, and this was in the 60s, is that right? Yeah.
68, 69. She died in 69.
But is this a story? Was this kind of a story that Balzac wrote about as well? I mean, why did you make a connection?
Because Balzac lived the same with a woman. The woman didn't suicide, but I mean, he had a relation with a woman who was 15 years older than him. And Balzac had a lot of relation with different women, a lot of affairs, let's say.
Yeah.
And especially this woman, he was attracted by this woman who wanted to introduce him to her own daughter, but he preferred the mother than the daughter. And people explain this because at that time, we know that Balzac was, when he was a baby, he was in a nursery. His mother couldn't. He was the older of 4 children. She couldn't
look after him.
Yes, so she decided to put him 3 years long, and maybe psychologists say that all his life long he looked for this 3 years he lost.
The mother figure.
Yeah, mother figure, and maybe he found it with women, older women. Most of the time, he had relation with older women. Most of the time, this one was 15 years older than him.
Yeah. So, this thing about the age differences and that sort of thing. I mean, today the president Emmanuel Macron is married to a woman who is
23 years
older than
24.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that doesn't create any scandals.
In France not. Maybe in the world when he became president, people say, "Wow, how is it possible?" But we didn't say anything, and we say so. It's a nice love story. It's a love story because they met when he was 15 or 16, so he was very young, and she was his teacher.
A teacher?
Yeah, she was teacher, French teacher. And he was doing some plays with her because she was teaching theater also. No, French was not surprised, and some French. It's very romantic. Maybe typically French. I don't know. But it's very romantic to see that they live their life despite the opinion of the people, of the parents, of the family. Because Brigitte Macron had a daughter who was the same age as Emmanuel, her future husband, and so it's not common.
Yeah.
But
yeah. How, do you think the Comédie Humaine in some way contributed to opening the minds of people? I mean.
Talk about Comédie Humaine of Balzac.
Yes.
Probably people considered women differently until Balzac wrote the Human Comedy. Women were considered as how could I say this? They were not in front. Men were in front. Men were deciding. Men were running the world.
Yeah.
And in La Comédie Humaine, most of the time women have their own opinion. They have some power sometimes, and they decide of a lot of things. And they have always an important role.
Yes, a place.
Place in the story every time. So thanks to Balzac, maybe women found another place.
Yes, because in the 18th century, in general, women were considered as second class, and even up to let's say Simone de Beauvoir, who writes that book,
Deuxième sexe.
Yes.
Yes, Simone de Beauvoir, she fighted for women. Yes, in fact, from Balzac to Simone de Beauvoir, nothing changed. I mean, things didn't change a lot. Balzac did what he could do, but yes, men decided that no, women were in second place.
Yeah.
And Simone de Beauvoir, yes, she's one of the first feminist, how do we say in French? Feminist.
Yes.
The first.
Yes.
And
And another woman, she is in Montparnasse. I mean, her grave is at Montparnasse. She had
writer?
yes, writer.
François Sagan?
No, it's one about who was in the Far East, Vietnam, or her husband was
Duras.
Chinese. Yes, Marguerite Duras.
Marguerite Duras, yes, Marguerite Duras. She also had a special life and a special love story. She knew when she was 14 years old. She knew a man who was 27, who was Chinese. He was a rich man, and it was her first love story. And she said at the end of her life, it was the main love story I had, because she knew she got married, and she had a German friend at the end of her life. But Marguerite Duras, yes, of course, she wrote a very, very good book called L'Amant, L'Amant, The Lover, which is also a movie. And she describes how she lived this story. She was 14 years old only. Only 14 years old at the time. It was forbidden, of course, because
Yes,
she
yes.
was young, and it was France at the time there. And she had to leave Vietnam because her mother had no money anymore. Her mother was teacher, and her father died. Her mother was teacher, and she tried to make some money with fields. And she wrote another book called Un barrage, a dam contre le Pacifique, because every time the sea came and took everything her mother did, I mean fields and everything. So it was a fight with no hope. And her mother decided to leave and to go back to France. And when she went back to France, she has to leave her lover, this famous Chinese guy. And one thing funny, at the end of her life, he came back to Paris and called her, and she recognized his voice on the phone, and she said, he was my